Do you think gold is money?
No.
It's not money. Even if it's been money for 6,000 years, somebody reversed that and eliminated that economic law.
Well, it's you know, it's an asset. I mean, it's the same. Would you say treasury bills are money? I don't think they're money either, but they're financial
Why do
assets.
central banks hold it?
Well, it's not over reserves. So
Why don't they hold diamonds?
Well, it's tradition, long-term tradition.
You know, some people still think it's money. I yield back. My time is up. Thank you.
I mean, isn't that absurd? I mean, Ben Bernanke is literally taking the piss. You know, gold isn't money. And of course, I mean, it's the same in every country in the world. They don't want people to know that gold is the way of protecting the purchasing value of your accumulated wealth. Most people in this country think that, despite the fact that we're in a property slump right now, and it's going to continue for a long time, but despite that, people think that their property has increased in value over the last 10 years. Let me put it in perspective. 10 years ago, exactly, 10 years ago, you needed 363 ounces of gold to buy the average property in this country. 363 ounces. Today, you need 94 ounces. 94 ounces of gold buys you the average property in this country. So in real terms, the average property in this country has actually devalued by over 70%. That's the reality of the situation. And of course, the vast majority of people have no clue about this whatsoever. That's why, fortunately, more and more people, of course we all need the stuff to live on a day-to-day basis, but more and more people, every time they've got a few pounds to spare, they're buying gold or silver, because that's what protects their money. The banks are taking the piss by offering 2-3% or whatever in return, whilst the gold moves that in a day. I mean, gold literally in the last 60 days has moved by close on 20%. Think about it. Some of you have seen this next clip I'm going to show you before, but it's an Irish guy in New England, and I was using this clip when I was doing a tour in Ireland, the final lockdown tours late last year and early this year, and this really went viral in Ireland, and at the time when I first started showing it, the Irish elections were coming up, and there was a movement to actually get this guy to run for office. But take a look at this.
I'm Jason Calabrese with Financial News, and today we're talking to a real Irishman and someone in the money business about what's going on in Ireland with the Celtic Tiger and the banks are hurting so much, the downfall. What's the story here?
You really want to know?
I'd love to know.
I'll tell you, it's like what has happened all over the Western world for the last 20 or 30 years. Greed, and more fucking greed, and cheap money. And in Ireland, it's a tragedy what happened to the Tiger. We have, I'd say, 4 causes. We had a stupid fucking government. We had a regulator that was asleep at the wheel. Now we had very deceitful and conniving and corrupt developers. And of course, above all, wanking fucking bankers. Wanking bankers, you have these arseholes that for the last 20, 30 years are getting these massive bonuses, these employees and directors of banks, on the misfortune of the working class, and get these huge bonuses and salaries. But, if you and all these arseholes should be thrown in jail and the keys thrown away for the rest of their life. And sir, if you went in and you're unemployed and you wanted to take a loaf of bread out of a store or a supermarket to feed your family, guess what? You'll be up in court for it. These assholes are living all over the world now on the backs of the misfortunate working people. And who's going to pay for all this? We've mortgaged the next generation or two. Who's going to pay for it? The working man. We got the labourer, the small farmer, the fisherman, the nurse, the teacher, the policeman, the fireman, the plumber, the carpenter. Fuck's sake, man, this is a joke.
So I'm sensing a wee bit of discontent?
Indeed, sir. And by the way, let's not be too cocky in this part of the world, North America either. All these debts that people have accumulated over the last 30 years, hey, everybody gets their day in the sunshine.
And you know, speaking of the Celtic Tiger and all that you mentioned, you know, the Michael Flatley is really from Chicago, but that's another story.
Fuck off!
Hey, don't you hate it when people hold back and won't tell you what they really think? I mean, the guy encapsulates it so beautifully, and when he says we could mortgage the next generation, you know, what we need to understand is that anybody born in the UK in 2011, the moment that they are registered, they are liable for a tax debt in excess of £300,000 over their lifetime. That's the level of debt. We have a national debt that's admitted at £4.2 trillion. Admitted at £4.2 trillion. So in other words, there's a very good bet it's more than that. But at that rate, it means that a child born in 2011 at current rates will inherit a debt of £300,000 in tax to be paid over their lifetimes to pay for the excesses of this and future generations, and the fact that all of the banking debts have been lumped on the taxpayer. This is why it's so outrageous. It's so outrageous. One advantage, of course, of crashing the currencies is that 4.2 trillion times nothing is not a big number. So, you know, having the advantage of crashing the currencies in that respect to wipe out debts. And that's why the Chinese right now are selling the dollar. If you're willing to gamble, you can buy US debt held by China at about 10 cents on the dollar, because they'd rather have the gold than they would the dollar holding. Something is going to give. We're going to certainly see it, I think, in the US. This is one of the Illuminati cards from the original set. Isn't that remarkable? Absolutely remarkable, because you know, this guy is unlikely to, unless something happens. And ironically, his staff have already started talking about the need for another 9/11 to get him back into the popularity stakes. So watch this space. Watch this space. It'll be very interesting over the next year or so to see whether there's any realistic possibility of this guy getting back in office. I don't think they're going to let this guy get back in office. I mean, the guy can't even think on his feet. You know, Tony Blair was the consummate actor. Tony Blair is the consummate psychopathic actor. This guy, I mean, you know, just to give you an example, Tony Blair could be given a briefing 5 minutes before he went on platform. Take a briefing and present it as though it was something he had a deep knowledge and understanding of. Obama, the joke in America is that if you ask this guy 5 minutes before he goes on platform what he's going to talk about, he hasn't got a clue. And if you ask him 5 minutes after he's come off platform what he's just talked about, he hasn't got a clue. He's totally reliant on the teleprompters. You know, if you turn the sound down, you think that Obama was watching a game of tennis. Because all he's doing is reading from the teleprompters. I mean, the guy's outrageously naive. That's why he got elected. But meanwhile, we have the charismatic leader card. This is actually from one of the news sects. The charismatic leader. And you know who's setting himself up for this, don't you? As many of you have heard me say before, that's why this guy had to convert to Catholicism. The EU is a Catholic entity. If you want to see more of that, Peter Sutherland, who is renowned as the father of globalisation, he was founding Director General of the World Trade Organization in 1994. And he gave a presentation at St John's College in Oxford last year on May the 15th. And you can download and find that presentation. And in that he talks about the relationship between the Vatican and the EU. And it's really quite shocking. Where are some of these guys trying to go? Some of the more outrageous globalists want this. They want this because they believe that this is what will give the global economy the kickstart that it needs. No, it won't. It'll just create more debt and accelerate the depopulation agenda. The reality, of course, is that the vast majority of people in the world have absolutely no desire to participate in this. But the ground is being laid through massive unemployment amongst our youth. No work, no hope, no future, no income, might as well sign up. got 30% and underemployment in Europe amongst the under 30s. And underemployment is potentially just as debilitating as unemployment. You know, underemployment being, you know, where you've got qualifications to enable you to perform at a particular level, perform a particular job, but you can't get that work. Plus, of course, you know, we're burdening our youth with massive debts, and they're about to get a lot worse when college fees in the UK effectively quadruple as of September 2012. Meanwhile, of course, the Scottish get it for free. Mitchell Coombs, what does Mitchell Coombs say? Mitchell Coombs, of course, being the guy who predicted the tsunami 104 hours before it actually occurred. And back in March, again, 2 days after the tsunami, this is what he wrote. He said, forget the first paragraph, he said, but so here's the truth about heart weather control systems that will fuck up your mind. The biological warfare begins this September 11th, that's 11/11. Well, I think the biological warfare has already begun. It began in the Gulf of Mexico last year with oil correxit, genetically modified microbiology. It was extended with Fukushima earlier this year. Is anybody here taking any precautions against rising radiation levels? Yeah. Look, for the sake of a bottle of kelp, anything with iodine will help raise protection against radiation. You've only got to look, I mean, one of the reasons that, you know, the Japanese are able to actually probably deal with what's occurring better than anybody else is because the Japanese have a very high level of iodine in their natural diet. Actually, that's why Hiroshima and Nagasaki could have been a lot worse in terms of casualties, were it not for the high iodine level in their diet. So for the sake of a bottle of kelp, I mean, just go Google, you'll find out things with kelp. You know, and taking a couple of kelp pills on a daily basis will build up in natural resistance. Another thing is to maybe have some, you know, large amounts of bicarb of soda, because bathing in a bath with bicarb of soda, it draws the radiation out of the body. If you want to know a little bit more, you just phone up anybody who lives or works around Sellafield, because they know all these tricks, of course. And part of the, you know, the local folklore. This is what you do to avoid getting caught up in any unfortunate accident. Now, I said that Mitchell Coombs claims that he makes his living from online poker and you know, gets lucky with the Illuminati cards, but maybe there's something else to that as well, because the Mitchell Coombs who makes these prophecies on Facebook claims that he's not this Mitchell Coombs, a very well-known medium, psychic medium in Australia. I'm not so sure that it's not one and the same person. It would make a lot of sense, to be sure. Anyway, I mean, of course, Mitchell Coombs, you can't get onto his Facebook. 5,000 plus people there. This is the report from Iron Mountain. It has been hotly argued that a believable external menace would offer the last best hope of peace by uniting mankind against the danger of destruction by creatures from other planets or from outer space. It is more probable in our judgment that such a threat will have to be invented. No shit. Did anybody see my mugshot in the Sun on page 20 a few weeks ago? I gave a presentation at the Geopolitics conference in Leeds, and I knew I was taking my life in my hands by talking to a reporter from the Sun. I thought, if I come out of this, you know, unscathed, it's going to be truly remarkable. Anyway, as it happens, you know, I tried to make sure that the reporter understood that I wasn't some, you know, crazy, and it wasn't just a random theory, and I tried to give her some background information as to why I thought that there was going to be fake alien invasion staged at the London Olympics. And they actually did a decent write-up. If you Google Ian Crane, The Sun, this is the only article that you're going to come up with, because it's the only time I've ever been in The Sun. But they actually gave a reasonable write-up. I talked about the fact that, you know, I was making the hypothesis that a fake alien invasion would be staged at the London Olympics as part of the agenda to establish world government. And what happened since then?